to Hurricane Irene. I think the last time you were in this building all together, we were telling you you needed to find a way to get home. And we are so lucky to have been able to reschedule this event so quickly and so privileged to have Bill Strickland, the author of the 2011 Common Read, Make the Impossible Possible, with us tonight. As you know, because you all completed the homework that I gave you at SOAR, right? Yes? Bill Strickland grew up in inner city Pittsburgh, where his life was changed by his relationship with a high school arts teacher named Frank Ross, a skilled craftsman on the potter's wheel. Their relationship gave form to the vision of the Manchester Craftsmen's Guild, an after-school arts program that began in a donated row house Bill secured while attending college. Bill graduated soon thereafter from the University of Pittsburgh with a bachelor's degree, cum laude, and we hope you will all achieve that, in American history and foreign relations. His success with the Guild program led quickly to his appointment as CEO of the Bidwell Training Corporation, which provided vocational training to many who were left unemployed by the declining steel industry. Bill envisioned a template for social change and set out to forge relationships with businesses, government, and others who shared his vision. Today, the Manchester Bidwell Corporation has evolved into a national model for education, culture, and hope. Bill also founded the MCG Jazz Series, the longest running and most successful jazz concert series in America, which has produced many concerts and is the recipient of at least 4, maybe 6 Grammy Awards, right, Bill? Bill's work with Manchester Bidwell began in a sleeping bag on the second floor of a dilapidated building, but has produced an amazing organization employing and training thousands. His work has earned him a MacArthur Genius Grant, Grammy Awards, a lectureship at Harvard, and a seat on the board of the National Endowment for the Arts. We are privileged to have an opportunity to hear Bill share his extraordinary story of transformation of organizations, lives, and culture. Please join me in welcoming the author of the 2011 Common Read and President and CEO of the Manchester Bidwell Corporation, Bill Strickland.
Got the book? Cool. Can you guys, can you hear me okay? Okay. Thanks for coming. The speech is very brief. It's not written down. And basically what I'm going to show you are some pictures of what I do for a living in Pittsburgh. And these pictures have gotten me into some interesting places, including where I'm at tonight. And I'm going to start off with the assumption that you guys care about your country and that you care about people who are disadvantaged and who don't have any hope. Those are the people I'm representing tonight on the stage. So I'm going to just talk to you about my autobiography. We can get in and out of here in a few minutes, which usually goes over well. But I have been doing basically this work for my entire life in the neighborhood where I was born and in the neighborhood where I'm going to die. My whole life story is 6 city blocks. And part of the reason I wanted to stay there was to let the kids know in that neighborhood that you don't have to go to the world. You can bring the world to your neighborhood. And that just because you're poor or disadvantaged does not mean that you don't have value and that your life is worth something. So I grew up as a poor kid. I'm very proud of the fact that I had some parents who came upon very hard economic times, but they cared about me. And even though I'm giving speeches to groups like you guys, and I've got a bunch of college degrees, I don't want to ever forget the fact that I grew up as a poor kid in the inner city of Pittsburgh. Because if you are ashamed about your history, you'll never have a good future. My family was in a very difficult situation. Oftentimes had to go out and find my dad in the middle of the wintertime because he was despondent and wasn't working, and he lost his dignity in the process. You guys need to know that because I suspect some of you may be coming from places not all that different than mine. And the good news is that just because you're poor or in the inner city does not mean that you can't have a life and that the world can't take you seriously. So I'm going to show you some pictures of this center I built in Pittsburgh. It's called Bidwell Training Center and Manchester Craftsmen's Guild. I once upon a time was a ceramic artist before any of you were born, and a public school teacher actually saved my life. I was walking down the court of our high school, kind of minding my own business, and the art room door was open, and Mr. Ross, who was the art teacher, made a great big old ceramic bowl, and I'd never seen anything like that before. And Mr. Ross turned around and says, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, man, what is that?" He said, "Oh, it's clay." I said, "I want you to help me do that." He says, "Well, get your homeroom teacher to sign a piece of paper that says you can come here and you're good to go." So for the remaining 2 years of high school, I cut all my classes, and I went to the art room. But I was smart enough to give the teachers whose classes I was cutting the pottery I made, and they gave me passing grades, and that's how I got out of the place. And Frank says, "You're too smart to die, you're going to college." So I filled out a college application in pencil, and they put this, I don't know if did you guys take the Scholastic Aptitude Test to get in here? Well, they gave me one at Pitt. I'd never seen the test before. And back then it was multiple choice. So I kind of marked this thing up and flunked the test and got in as a probationary student. Well, not only did I graduate from the University of Pittsburgh with honors, I'm now a trustee of the University of Pittsburgh. I actually sit on the board of the school that let me in on probation. And I got up in front of 13,000 people and I said, "Don't give up on the poor kids. They might end up being the commencement speaker." And that story is what I'm going to talk about for the next couple of minutes. When you're born into the world, you're born into the world as an asset, not a liability. It's all in the way that you treat people that determines behavior. Now, I've also won something called the MacArthur Fellowship, the so-called Genius Award. One of the guys who won the MacArthur with me, his name was Stephen Hawking. He did okay in the physics business. So here's the greatest physicist since Albert Einstein and Bill Strickland, who flunked the SAT test, getting the MacArthur Genius Award. Don't judge the book by the cover, because you never know in what form your next genius is going to show up. So if you treat everybody the same, it increases the likelihood something good's going to happen to you. Now let me show you the center that I built in the highest crime rate neighborhood in Pittsburgh, which is where I live and where I'll die. We had 5 murders in the last 4 weeks in my neighborhood. Guys were getting shot because of tennis shoes, drug deal went bad, mistaken identity. 5 kids, but not in my center. We've never had one incident of violence or drugs or alcohol in my center since it's been open for 26 years. We have no metal detector, no armed guards, and no cameras. 0. Why? Because we build the center on the assumption that there's nothing wrong with the kids. And if you teach people to be world-class citizens and treat them that way, that's how they'll become. So let me just show you the center I built for the kids. That's the center. It's in the highest crime rate neighborhood. And, oh, by the way, this center was the scale model for the Pittsburgh airport. It was done by a student of Frank Lloyd Wright, the architect. This is my idea of what a school for poor kids is supposed to look like. Why? Because people are a function of the environment that you put them in. You put kids in a beautiful environment, they act like beautiful kids. You build prisons, they act like prisoners. So this is my concept of what a school's supposed to look like. And in 26 years, we've never had one act of violence, no drugs, no alcohol, or a police call. Zero. Nothing. This is the entrance to the building. We have fabulous artwork throughout the building. It's all my taste because I raised all the money. I said to my board, when y'all raise the money, we'll put your taste on the wall. But we have quilts and clay and calligraphy, and everywhere your eye turns, there's something beautiful looking back at you. The other thing that's very important to note, the building is flooded with sunlight. The worst part about being poor is what it does to your spirit. Poor people never have a nice day. Most of them don't even know that the sun shines anymore because they don't have any reason to look at it. So the whole idea of my center was to get people out of the dark and put them in the light and let them know that the sun's for everybody on the planet, not just rich people. And it's worked out fine. By the way, we've never had one act of theft or vandalism in this building in 26 years. Quilts and calligraphy. That's our boardroom. I commissioned a Japanese cabinet maker to do 60 pieces of furniture for our school. I hired the guy from Kyoto, Japan. Why? Because I wanted kids to go to a school that looks like this. That's why. And in the old days, a friend of mine went to Kyoto, Japan and married a fellow and brought him back to Pittsburgh. And she asked me if I'd give him a job. Well, she brought the guy over and he didn't speak any English. You can imagine how much Japanese I speak. But she kind of interpreted for this guy, and I found out he was a world-class furniture maker. So I gave him a job teaching carpentry and doing furniture for the school. If I were to go out and buy that table, that would be about $800,000. We didn't pay that for it. But we've since spun this guy off into his own business. He has a year doing furniture for rich people in Pittsburgh. But we got that for our school. We also have fresh flowers in the building every day, not plastic, real. I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm not promoting plastic flowers. I have never figured out the aesthetic contribution of plastic flowers to the world, but I ain't got them in my school. Now that I'm getting to be a big shot, speaking at the University of New Haven and this and that, we had a bunch of high school principals come over and see my school. They said, man, Mr. Strickland, this place is fabulous, and we were really blown away by them flowers. We were curious how them flowers got there. I said, well, I got in my car and I went out to the greenhouse, and I bought them and I brought them back and I put them there. You don't need a task force or a study group to buy flowers for your kids, man. The children deserve fresh flowers in their life. The cost is incidental, but the gesture is very significant. People are a function of little things. Sunlight and flowers and good food cures cancer of the spirit. That's what I figured out. Do you all eat Heinz ketchup up here in New Haven? Well, good, you ought to eat more of it. I don't know where your politics are about ketchup, but I stand with ketchup. In the old days, before I got real sophisticated, I had a cardboard box built in my school, and I had it in a garbage bag. And I looked like a homeless guy dragging this bag all over Pittsburgh, and I got called into the office of United States Senator John Heinz, who was the heir to the Heinz ketchup fortune, which was like going to see the Wizard of Oz, because he had about $600 million at the time, and I had about 60 cents. He said, man, you've done a great job with the poor folks, and we understand you want to build a new school. I said, yes, sir, I do. He said, well, you could really help the Heinz Company's affirmative action goals out if you'd build this new culinary program with your new school, that way we could hire some black folks and solve the problem. Well, we were a building trades program back then. I said, Senator, I'm really reluctant to go into a field I don't know anything about, but if you'll give me some money to build this school, I'll come back in a couple years and we'll get that culinary program going just like you asked. And he sat real quietly. He said, well, what would your answer be if I said I'd give you $1 million? I said, Senator, it appears that we're going into the food training business. And John did give me $1 million, but as importantly, he loaned me the head of research for the Heinz Company. We built $1 million kitchen for welfare mothers in the middle of this inner city neighborhood, and we've never looked back. Everybody that goes through the training program got work in the industry for which they were trained beginning last year. That's the amphitheater we built for the students. That's our pastry department. We took the design from a Ritz-Carlton hotel and built it, so our guys are being trained to a Ritz-Carlton standard. This is the food that we eat at the school every day. We've discovered, it looks pretty good, right? How many of you would like to have lunch that looks like that every day? Raise your hand. Okay, well, that solves that problem. Well, that usually gets everybody's attention. Well, what we've discovered is it's very difficult to teach people when they're hungry. So the answer is give them something to eat. But we don't do fast food, we do gourmet food. So we have a gourmet lunch for every kid that comes to the center every day. Good food is for everybody on the planet, not just rich people. And if people tell you that you can't serve poor kids gourmet food, you send them to Pittsburgh. I've been doing it for 22 years. You just have to want to do it bad enough. That's all pastry. I actually sat down and ate a whole basket one time. It was very good. No calories, of course, but a great demonstration of the power of the human spirit. This is what poor people are doing after 6 months with no background in food preparation. This is our dining room. Looks like your average high school cafeteria in your hometown, right? Well, we do a lot of black tie functions at our school, Medical Association, Engineer Society. This is my concept of what a school's supposed to look like for inner city kids. We also train pharmaceutical technicians for the pharmacy industry. We train chemical technicians for the chemical industry. One of the miracles of this center is I have people with no background in science doing chemical applications in about a year. They go to work for the chemical companies, for the medical hospitals. We've solved the problem. One of our students. That's our library, more of our handcrafted furniture. And this is the arts program. Remember, I'm the kid from the 60s making pottery in the streets? I don't even think any of you were born in the 60s. How many of you were around in the 60s? Raise your hand. That's what I thought. We'll have to check out the age of the people I'm talking to. The jokes don't work. Well, I was around during the disturbances. Back then, we called them what they were. Guys were getting shot on the streets during the riots, and I wanted to help change the picture. So I started an arts program, started working with kids in the streets. I started hearing back from the schools that the kids were starting to show up at school more regularly. And what I figured out after a couple years, there wasn't anything wrong with the kids. School system was the problem. The kids were fine. They needed clay and good food and sunlight. You cure cancer. So I figured this out. Oh, by the way, 92% of the kids that graduated from our program went to college last year. And these are the kids who were flunking out of public school when I enrolled them in my program. Don't judge the book by the cover. So we do clay and photography. This is all kids' work. These are all the people with no ability, remember. These are all inner city kids from an inner city public school system who supposedly can't learn anything. Well, they learn fine. This is the mosaic workshop. This is the piece the kids did for the school. These are all the kids with no artistic ability, apparently. Well, they have plenty of ability. We do photography. The kid who took that picture is now working for Disney. This is the gallery. This is the student show. This is our idea of how to present the work of inner city kids. Oh, by the way, the black kids and the white kids and the Hispanic kids and the Asian kids are built exactly the same. And they just respond to the program exactly the same. We're all built about the same. This is actually an old slide. Before I got real sophisticated with my little computer PowerPoint, I actually had slides in a box with duct tape on the corner. And I still showed up at a place called the Silicon Valley. So I showed up with my slide projector, and these people looked at me like I was from Pluto, man. But that's cool. I blew off the dust, plugged in my little slide projector, told my story. The lady came out of the audience, she said, man, that was a heck of a story. My only criticism is your computers are getting a little bit old. Well, I ain't no high-tech guy. I said, what do you do for a living? She said, oh, I built a company called Hewlett-Packard. I said, my dear, we can solve this problem pretty fast. So we got $1 million from HP and a systems engineer to go with it. And we now have one of the hippest digital imaging centers east of the Mississippi River. That's the center that we built. Oh, I also stuck a music hall in the north end of the building, and a very famous jazz musician named Dizzy Gillespie showed up. And I asked him why would he come to a center in the middle of the inner city of Pittsburgh. He said, a black guy built it. I didn't believe one to see for myself. And you ought to build one of these centers in every city in this country, and I'm going to help you do it. So Dizzy allowed us to record his concert. Then a piano player named Herbie Hancock showed up. And then Nancy Wilson and Betty Carter, Tito Puente. We've won 4 Grammys for our recording, so we have our own record label. And oh, by the way, yesterday we just got nominated for 2 more Grammys for Latin. This is the place on opening night. If you'd have dropped a bomb in that room, you'd kill all the rich people in Pennsylvania because they were all sitting there. The next night I had the neighborhood come in. I had the same food both nights because I wanted to establish the principle that you don't have to own a tuxedo to be treated like somebody wearing one. And I knew that people start talking about that, so we now sell out all of our concerts in subscription 3 weeks after the season's announced. We've never had one act of violence since we've been open in 20 years. There's Dizzy. That's a guy named Billy Taylor and Jerry Mulligan. That's Pat Metheny. Paul Simon's engineers designed that acoustically perfect recording studio. We did back-to-back Grammys with Nancy Wilson. These are all kids from the public school system, 3rd graders, who love the music. We do Batman and the Flintstones to jazz, and the kids love it. This was burned out during the riots. This is the neighborhood where the pretty building I just showed you is, just in case you thought I built it downtown. So I had another box built. I built a medical technology center. The thing actually makes money in the middle of the inner city. We have Citizens Bank. Oh, I also built a greenhouse. We grow orchids, and we sell the orchids in the grocery stores, and it's turned out to be a very successful program. Those orchids. We took 1st and 2nd prize in the Orchid Symposium, so now all the orchid people meet at our center. Those orchids. Now I'm down to the end of the presentation, and this is where the story takes a couple of interesting turns that I want you to kind of check out. You remember I was out there at the Silicon Valley with my slideshow? Well, this young man came out of the audience. He said, that was a heck of a story and a great presentation. I said, well, what do you do for a living? He said, oh, I built a company called eBay. I said, oh, that's cool. You got a card? Remember, I'm not a techie guy. I didn't know what eBay was. So I took the guy's card, I put it in my pocket, and went back to Pittsburgh and asked one of the little techie kids, I said, what is eBay, man? He said, oh, Mr. Strickland, that's the Electronic Commerce Network. I said, holy smokes, I met the guy that built the company. So I called him up. I said, Mr. Skull, I've come to have a much deeper appreciation of who you are, man. He said, I thought you'd figure it out sooner or later. Jeff's got $5 billion. He's 43 years old. and he's a type A just like me, and he wants to save the world just like me. So he gave me a check for $500,000, and that's how we started our first center in San Francisco. In fact, Jeff and I decided we want to build 200 centers, 100 in the U.S. and 100 around the world yesterday. We got 4 open. Cleveland, Cincy, Grand Rapids, and Frisco. There's the space in Frisco before it was fixed up. There's Mr. eBay, Jeff on the right, Billy Wong and the kids doing digital imaging in San Francisco. These are the kids. These are all the people who supposedly don't have any talent, remember. We cut the dropout rate in Cincinnati to 6% in 24 months. In a school system with a 50% dropout rate, same kids. There's the gallery. There are the kids. They're also doing murals at $10,000 a mural in Cincinnati and turned it into a business. This is the one that's in Grand Rapids. We cut the dropout rate in Grand Rapids to 5% in 36 months. Why? Because there's nothing wrong with the kids, that's why. Nothing wrong with the kids. We're losing this country, guys, in case you ain't noticed. The dropout rate for inner city kids now in America is 50%. If we had 50% of the graduating class of University of New Haven, you'd have to close the doors of the place. And this is the standard that we've now accepted in our country, and we ain't going to make it, guys. There's no way that this can be sustained. So I'm hoping, I'm praying, that I can get enough of you interested in this work to help me turn our country around before we lose it. I happen to like this place. And if we don't get it right, we're done. So I'm in a big hurry. This center in Grand Rapids was created by a man named Jim Welsh, who died 3 years ago of leukemia. And he called me from the Anderson Cancer Center. He said, I don't think I'm coming home. But when you talk about the center, let the people know that the thing I was proudest of was not the money I made, but the poor people I helped. So let me show you the center. This is the center. You get the idea? Every center is beautiful. Those are pictures of Dr. King during the last 2 years of his life. There's the dining facility. This is the kids' work. These kids. Those kids. And these used to be called welfare mothers. They're now pharmaceutical technicians. This is the one we just opened in Cleveland. It's got a waiting list too deep. They've been open 6 months. There are the kids. This guy does recording for Alicia Keys. He's teaching recording technology to the kids. Medical technology. And this is the space that we're going to build here in New Haven. We're going to build a center in New Haven. It's called the Connecticut Center for the Arts. It's going to be down in the Science Park in New Haven. We've already raised the money. We've got a chairman of the board. We're going to start working with kids from the New Haven public school system, and we're going to turn this conversation around. Now, we're also building them in Boston. This is what the Boston Center is going to look like. So you see New Haven and Boston. We're also planning centers in Austin, Buffalo, and Brockway, Pennsylvania, Reno, Richmond, St. Petersburg, Allentown, Atlanta, and St. Thomas, the Virgin Islands. And we're also talking about Halifax, Vancouver, and Israel. And this is the book that you guys are familiar with. Let me tie up this story with a couple things I think you need to know. One of which is We're going to build these centers, all right. We're going to build one in New Haven, and the goal is to build 100 centers in the U.S. yesterday because we're losing too many kids, guys who look just like you and just like the people sitting next to you, and this has got to stop. I'm hoping I can persuade some of you to be a part of this conversation. Number two, I was with the President of the United States in December in the Oval Office. President Obama asked me to serve on a commission, and the President walked into the room and he said, "We're losing the kids in our country. Thank you for being willing to help your country save the children." And there were 25 of us on this list. So I've been with the President. I'll be with the President again this fall. He's a good guy. And every time I think I'm having a bad day, I think of what the President's dealing with, and I feel better. But one of the guys on the list, I was reading down the list of all the people on the committee, there was some guy named John Bon Jovi. I said, I wonder what he does for a living. So I went back to Pittsburgh, and my daughter said, well, how was the White House? I said, it was cool. I said, just out of curiosity, you ever heard of somebody named John Bon Jovi? She said, oh, Dad, I hope you didn't tell the President that you didn't know the guy. I said, no, I kept my mouth shut. I got enough sense to know that. Well, I found out who he was because he showed up in Pittsburgh 2 months ago to see my center. He gave a T-shirt to every kid in the program. We got a private tour. We got photographs of the guy. And he said, I finally found the answer to poverty I was looking for. It's sitting in Pittsburgh. If some of you were watching ABC about a month ago, you saw John Bon Jovi, the Mayor Cory Booker, and me at the podium with the kids because we committed ourselves to building a center in Newark. So we think that one's going to be on its way as well. I think we can pull this off. And I'm counting on a few people like you guys to help me get there. I'm not going to change the story, ever. Now here's where I think it comes down to you. I think that most of the guys that I've met at this university are pretty good people. I think most of you know right from wrong and good from bad. If that's not true, why do we have the noise level in the room right now? Because all I showed you were some pictures. But I don't think they're my pictures, I think they're our pictures. I think most of you guys actually care about your country. I think you care about your neighborhood. And I really think you care about each other. In fact, I believe it so much I'm betting my life that I'm right. One of the things that makes you depressed when you're poor is you feel so ashamed of your background. I'm hoping that those of you who may be coming from a similar background to mine understand that you don't have to stay that way. You can be up here at this podium doing talks just like me, regardless of where you were born or how much money your parents made. One of the things I will confess to you publicly, privately, my mother, God bless her soul, before she died, she lived to see the center, and she lived to see the president come visit. But she's gone, but before she left the planet, she put a little gene at the base of my brainstem that prevents me from blocking out images of human suffering. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm watching CNN, and I see these kids in Kenya with flies in their mouth, or the kids eating out of garbage dumps in Sao Paulo, Brazil, or the kids I saw today in New Haven standing out in front of homeless shelters in the rain, no mom, no hope. And I don't know how to block out images of that kind of suffering. It's very painful to see kids with no parents and no hope. I suspect some of you may be built the same way that I am. I think some of you may feel the same level of pain when you see human suffering, which means from time to time you must get discouraged, just like me. I figured out the cure for the depression that accompanies that level of suffering. If you build friends in every town where you go, the next time you go back, you won't be so depressed, and therefore you will not be so suffering. So in my view, if I haven't done anything else here tonight, but add a couple of friends to the list, by my estimation, I think I've done my job. And thank you for being the wonderful kids that you are.
Thank you for your inspiring words, Bill. We hope that there are many here today whose life's work will have as great an impact as yours, and that the class of 2015 will set high goals and to achieve so that they can achieve what may be perceived as impossible dreams. So we have a token of our appreciation for you to remember the University of New Haven. We are now going to welcome students' questions. We have a couple of people with microphones, so raise your hand if you have a question for Bill. He will respond, and then when we're concluded with that, we will have a book signing. Those of you that want to stay around after the book signing and chat with Bill are welcome to, and those that have not voted for your class banner, please do so on the way out. So I'll turn it back over to Bill for questions.
Anybody got a question? Yes, sir. We got a couple here. There's one. Hang on.
How long until the New Haven Center is open?
We're going to start construction in about 2 months. We're hoping that springtime 2012 will actually be ready for kids. So probably in the next 6 to 7 months. One more in the back, maybe? Yeah, shout it out. Anybody else?
How can we get involved in the movement?
One of the things I'm going to do is to bring the chairman of the board and the director of the center up here to the university to meet some of the administrators, and we may have an opportunity for those people to come and talk to you as students. So for those of you who are interested in getting involved with the center, we can kind of sign you up. So we will be back. I'll bring them back here to the university because it's obvious that some of you are interested in helping out. So we'll create an opportunity for you to get involved with the center. Yeah, shout it out.
How you doing? My name is Courtney Mashoud. I'm a freshman here, and I was going to ask you can we make an immediate impact like right now? Not as soon as you need any help doing anything now, like right now.
I like your approach, man. Actually, yeah. I'm going to see if Eric Clemens, the director, could come up and address some of your classes so that we could get him directly connected to you. That's something we can do fairly soon.
Okay.
And the other is, and this is something you can do, tell the people that you know that what you heard tonight, because we can start getting more centers built if guys like you start to promote this idea. And that way we could really get some scale going and start building centers all over the country. Thank you. That's a good question.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else? We got maybe one here. Where's the lady with the microphone? Maybe we'll do one or two more. She's in the front, so just give us a second. Okay, here's the question. Hang on. Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
If I know of a place that might need help, like other cities too, how would I go about getting that?
These guys have my website and my email address. If you're interested in talking about a city that might want to do one of these, you can email me. We have a standard procedure to respond to you. And the strongest thing I'd suggest you do is get on a bus as a group and come visit the center. Seeing is believing. We have groups now from all over the country, college students like yourself, who do come visit the center. Make it a field trip. We can talk more then. Anybody else? I think we're good. Maybe one more question? Okay, we'll do one more. And then for those of you who are interested, I'm going to stick around and sign a few books. Hang on, we'll do one more question. As soon as we can find the person. Okay, we got this will be the final question. You got one? Shoot.
At what point in your life were you positive with what you wanted to do in the future?
I really decided that I wanted to do this kind of work about 20 years ago. I had lost my job. I was an airline pilot. I used to fly jets for a living. And I lost my job. But sometimes the thing you want the most sets you up for the thing that you really need to do with your life. I lost my airline job, but at the very moment I lost that job, the idea of this center appeared to me, and I decided to build that. It was about 20 years ago. I think it was the better choice, doing this work. If I hadn't, I wouldn't be here meeting great guys like you. Thanks for listening. Have a good evening.